welcome to semifinal Telesnot. That episode will be a little longer than usual, so let's not prolong. And let's start with the recap. What a match it was. The Albion Wanderers clashed with the Necrarch Vampires in war of attrition. Both teams were well aware of the high stakes of this encounter. The Vampires started by hypnotizing the key players of the Albion team from the get-go. They knew that if the famous Elia was given too much freedom, it would be disastrous for them. So they attempted a 5-man foul on him from the start, but a mistake by their thrower threw them off balance. The Albion players wasted no time and rushed to assist their White Knight, meanwhile putting pressure on the ball, lying unattended on the field. However, the Vampires, realizing that the armor of the White Knight was too powerful, and switched their focus on the ball and entrenched themselves near the sidelines, struggling to gain the upper hand against the Albion players. The Vampires attempted to stretch the Albion's defense, but these attempts only resulted in the loss of several key players. However, despite the initial difficulties, they managed to break through and, thanks to a defensive player's mistake, took the lead. The Albion players tried to quickly equalize the score before the end of the first half, but Arthur Raziel, after performing a spectacular pirouette over a fallen vampire, stumbled and fell on the touchdown line. I don't know what was happening in the Albion locker room, but the enraged shouts of Aiden could be heard throughout the stadium. The Knight's thrower must have been under particular pressure from the White Knight, because upon entering the field, he was so shaken that he couldn't hold on to the ball. The Albion offense was stuck in a dead end, which eventually backfired, and the Vampires snatched the ball from them. Time decisively did not work in favor of the Wanderers, who increasingly felt its pressure, as well as the pressure from the White Knight himself, who was boiling with anger. The Vampires attacked the ball holder, Madeline Gondel, the captain of the guard, at every opportunity, but he never allowed the ball to be knocked out of his hands and equalized just before the end of the game, sending us into overtime. So, my dear ones, the first quarterfinal match, and we're already heading into overtime. Both teams were exhausted, but they had to endure another 8 turns. Just after the kickoff, it was evident that both teams were at their breaking point. Players began making more and more mistakes. Only Aiden did what he had to do, turning one of the vampire players into pulp at every opportunity. It is worth noting that this famous White Knight recorded another 3 injuries in this match, reaching a total of 10 opponents decimated in 8 matches. However, this is Blood Bowl, and it's not just about massacring opponents. One of the vampires painfully reminded them of that by snatching the ball from the Albion players. However, before the spectators could notice, the ball was back on the ground, guarded by the Knights. However, their thrower apparently couldn't handle the pressure anymore and couldn't lift the ball until the end of the match. The Vampires' last chance was a long pass, but the player who was supposed to receive the ball comically tripped on the field. This exhausting match had to end with a penalty shootout in which the Albion players clearly led. The final shot was taken by none other than their famous White Knight, who kicked the ball with such force that it pierced the stone wall behind the goal line. Of course, the point was awarded to them. Foe, what a match it was. And before us are still the results of the remaining matches. Suicide Squad clashed with Realm Riders in the second quarterfinal match. Before entering the field, the Knights began singing songs about their past deeds and renewed their oath to the Lady of the Lake. Meanwhile, Joseph and his rats went shopping with the Equalization Fund. After much deliberation, they decided on a small wizard in slightly too short robes. The riders started, but many of them hesitated before attacking the giant rats. However, Jerry Barry, a Britannian peasant who excelled at rat extermination, kicked one of the rat ogres, Ken Wired, so hard that the stadium staff had to remove him from the field. Both teams began to suffer significant personnel shortages, as the rats were not stingy in inflicting damage on their opponents. Then, a massive explosion occurred on the field, severely injuring one of the main players of the Realm Riders. It turned out that it was none other than the small wizard who caused the explosion before proudly sitting on the coaching bench. The Knights failed to take the lead in the first half. They agonized over the fate of their injured and fallen comrades. For the second half, the medics managed to wake up almost all the unconscious players. Almost, as Ken, the injured rat ogre, continued to sleep. And although Coach Moralian hit the largest bell available, all he could hear from the oversized rat was just 5 more minutes. But time was running out, and the second half began. With only 2 giants on the Suicide team, they struggled with the pressure exerted by the Knights. Additionally, their 2 beasts began fighting each other at one point, allowing the Knights to intercept the ball. And just when everything seemed lost, Lord Bigos hesitated at the touchdown line, don't wanting to risk the fall under pressure, as he was aware of stories about players who could trip at the last step. This time, however, from the time perspective, he should have tried it because the enraged rat ogre managed to tie him up with its long tail. Lord Bigos tried to free himself, but to no avail. Thus, we were treated to a second overtime. Both teams had trouble fielding even half of their capable players. Miraculously, the Suicide Squad managed to wake up Ken. However, he was so drowsy that he literally fell asleep again right after the whistle, and once again, many stadium workers had to carry him away. The Realm Riders almost scored again, but the agile little rats managed to escape them. It was a sad sight to see the exhausted Knights who couldn't catch up to the Clan Molder players, and just before the final whistle, they established the score of 1-0 in their favor. Sweet Nuffle, what a slaughter it was! The total number of casualties in this match reached 15 injured and 2 dead. For the Realm Riders, it's the end of their story. The Knights mourned their fallen comrades and departed towards Britannia. Now Coach Moralian has quite a dilemma on how to deal with the rematch against Albion Wanderers. We will certainly be reporting on that match for you. The students of the Nuln Artillery Academy faced quite a challenge. Their opponents, the Sneaky team, bore no resemblance to their group stage foes. Swift and agile, the Serpent people posed a formidable threat, using their hypnotic abilities to gain an early advantage. However, the engineers found a solution. Their precision bombs struck the wily serpents, effectively thinning their ranks. Moreover, mindful of past problems with their tank, they made financial preparations to ensure the referee turned a blind eye to its presence on the field. The serpents fought valiantly, but ultimately succumbed to the advantage the students and their machines had gained. Now, it's certain that in the semi-final match, our brave students will face their greatest nemesis. Women. The last quarterfinal match was quite intense. The maidens came out swinging, definitively taking out one of the Amazon warriors early on. Moments later, another joined her on the sidelines. Despite the setbacks, the Legends of Arizona managed to halt the onslaught and gain possession of the ball. This completely threw the Valkyries off their game, forcing them into a defensive drive where they lost their footing. As it became clear that they couldn't contain the Amazons, the Valkyries resorted to some very brutal eliminations of the opposing players who dared to reach for victory. But thanks to the excellent performance of the Lustrian medical team, all players were woken up for the second half. But before the referee could start the match, enraged Valkyrie fans stormed the field and brutally assaulted several Amazon players. It was a big break for the Valkyries, who literally shattered the Amazon lines, sending 2 of them back to the medics for woke up. The significant imbalance in the number of players forced the Amazons into desperate defense of their lead. The Winter Storm maidens pressed the Amazons against the sidelines in hopes of seizing the ball before the final whistle. For the Lustrian women, maintaining their fragile lead was paramount. The tension grew with each passing second, both teams feeling the pressure mounting. The Amazon ball carrier stood on the edge of the line, feeling the breath of the furious, sweaty maidens fans who were just waiting for her to step over the line. But that never happened. Like serpents, the Amazons, risking everything, swiftly broke through the already distraught Valkyries, sealing the match at 2-0 and eliminating them from the tournament. However, the Valkyries decided to bid farewell by giving the Amazons a few parting bruises, causing a serious injury to Zuzia, one of the stars of the Legends of Arizona team. She will be off for the semifinals. And there we have it, the semifinals and 2 rematches from the groups. Stage Albion Wanderers and Severside Squad already played their match before this Telesnot hit live, but we will cover their game in next video. And students of the Nuln Academy will fight Amazons, so they will fight even less covered women's. Well, they will be able to focus on their game, or they will be beaten by ladies. again. Also, in this weekend, we will have a big tournament, Warsaw and, well, Warsaw. So it might affect the schedule of the semifinals. And it's all for today. We wish you all the best and see you in the next Telesnot. Bye!